Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the New York Stadium. Norwich City have been beaten for the first time in this championship campaign. They've lost here by 2-1 and deservedly beaten as well against the Rotherham side, who achieved their first win of the season. Although you speak to the natives here, and I think they can consider themselves quite unlucky that it's taken them this long to get a win. Really, Norwich have lost the game because of a really poor first half performance, a bitterly poor first half performance. It wasn't fitness, because we know how fit they are. We know how hard David Wagner's worked them in that department. It was just they really struggled with the basics today. There were a lot of loose touches, loose passes, really struggled to get up the pitch, I thought. And it's natural because Josh Sargent wasn't here, and we know the type of impact that he has on this Norwich City group and this Norwich City team. But you watch when Norwich were trying to incite the press, there was no one really causing problems in behind in that first half. No one spinning off defenders. No one, and what that does not necessarily is give Norwich's defenders and midfielders options to go over the top and then stretch the game, but it also creates space in the centre of the pitch. And they didn't have either, because Ida and Barnes were dropping deeper. It condensed the game into their half, and they just found it so difficult to get up the pitch. Every time a ball would go longer, it would then come straight back. And it's a testament to what Rotherham did, because they sat in a high block. I thought they swarmed Norwich. It wasn't the type of pressing that maybe you came to expect when you came to watch a Paul Warne side here, where it was gun ho and it was get after them and it was chase them and it was up and at them. This was an intelligent high block placed to nullify Norwich City from source, really. And because, as I mentioned, Norwich didn't pose that threat in behind that they have been doing, that Sargent's been doing so well. They just got a little bit stuck, and that allowed Rotherham to feel their way into the game. It allowed them to turn the ball over pretty quickly. It allowed them to play off Jordan Hugill. They got their wide men high and caused real problems. And then they caught Norwich City on the chin with 2 goals. The first is an absolute stunner, long throw, falls to the lad. It's a brilliant technique to slice across the ball like that. I've been told it was his first senior goal, I believe, which is some way to mark it. Gunn just kind of stood watching. The second one is really simple. They get overloaded from a throw-in situation. It comes to deep. Brilliant ball in. Jordan Hugill gets a run on Ben Gibson, I think, and just flicks a header into the back of the net. And from there, what was a high block, we then saw Rotherham retreat and kind of enter management mode. But Norwich's first half, so unlike the type of side that we've seen in recent weeks, where there's been so much energy and they've been able to they've been a bit of a battering ram. Teams have put up walls and they've just battered through them. And today they didn't do that with the same swagger, I guess. And it's difficult to really put your finger on why, because like I say, it's not a fitness related issue, because Norwich City under David Wagner have been working very hard on fitness, and you've seen them reap the benefits of that. It wasn't necessarily a tactical issue, because it was one change from what we saw at Huddersfield. It was just, I think, an overall bad day at the office, to use that kind of cliche technique. There were 5 or 6 players who were really under par. I thought Yanulis had a real wobble today, after what's been some really, really good performances from him. Jack Stacey likewise. Gabriel Sara in the first half really struggled to get into the game, but it just looked like a completely different player. It was almost like he'd been transformed, taken out, and I don't know, his brother had been thrown in. It was a really odd performance, and it was largely of Norwich City's own making. And in a weird sense, that's why I think when David Wagner and his coaching team leave here tonight, they will be reflecting on what they didn't do. And that, for me, is an indication that this isn't something that needs to be more sinister than perhaps what I fear people maybe could build it up into. And it was a bad day. Teams lose games in the Championship. There's so many of them. You can't always perform at the levels. There are loads of mitigation and reasons for that. Norwich's squad looked quite thin as well today, I thought, and obviously that's an impact of deadline day yesterday and losing Andrew Mbamidele, Josh Sargent's injury, Borja Sainz not being available, Sorensen obviously to come back, Hwang, Bart. Suddenly that squad begins to look at Hernandez. Suddenly that squad begins to look a lot deeper pretty quickly. But I thought the issue first half, like I say, they just didn't stretch the game enough. They didn't get up the pitch enough, and that enabled Rotherham to sit in a really high block, and they did that so well. They were so aggressive. They played with a real intensity, and they were really impressive. And I think they will consider themselves unfortunate not to have got more in front than they did in that period. But a 2-0 lead, it was healthy. And And it enabled them to really then go into game management mode in the second half. And Norwich in the second half improved. They dropped Gabriel Sara a little bit deeper. And because of Rotherham's shape, their midfielders weren't getting as close to him as maybe they were in the first half. He was being able to dictate the game a little bit more and began to show some quality. There was one really nice pass to Jack Stacey around the corner in the second half inside the box. But again, because of how condensed the central area, they were forcing Norwich out wide, and it was out wide where they probably didn't show the quality. Really, they worked plenty of crossing openings and opportunities, but barring one from John Rowe, which led to Christian Fashnak putting the ball into the back of the net, they didn't show the quality in those areas. They didn't make the quality of chance in that area that meant that they could grab anything from this game, really, and that is a quality point. And I don't think Tony Springett had a real impact in terms of that. So much energy and enthusiasm, but just end products. Likewise on the other side as well, Jack Stacey had some real shaky moments in terms of his end product as well, and that's where Norwich fell short in what was a much improved second half performance, but they got beat by the first half performance today. That's why the result is as it is. They gave themselves too much of a mountain to climb. They couldn't answer the questions that Rotherham posed on them, and it's quite interesting to listen to Matt Taylor speak, and he spoke about Sarah getting on the ball and beginning to dictate play more, and how because they lost a little bit of control in the central areas of the pitch, he moved to a three at the back. And I actually felt as soon as Norwich took Adam Eder off, it kind of, for me, kind of settled Rotherham down a little bit. They had Ashley Barnes to focus on, and he's a real good focal point. He's a real nuisance, but I don't think he offers the natural goal threat, so to speak, that maybe other strikers do, because naturally he wants to come deeper, he wants to link the play, he wants to get others into the game, and Norwich just didn't have the pace that maybe they've had when John Rowe was off the pitch, and the quality even didn't have the runners in beyond, and I think that cost them today. They weren't enough of a threat in behind Rotherham. Rotherham were watching a lot of the game in front of them, and I think that probably suits the way they want to defend, because they've got a lot of old school type defenders here. Cohen Bramwell, I thought, had a fantastic game at left back. Their two centre backs are big. They want to head it all the time, and if you go and put crosses in their box, then they will accept that. And that's kind of the story of the game, really. A frustrating afternoon for Norwich City, and one where they will be reflecting on what they didn't do. And again, I want to reiterate, I thought Rotherham deserved to win. They're the better side. It was an excellent performance, and it's interesting speaking to various people here. They feel maybe the best performance that Rotherham have shown since Matt Taylor came in. So particularly that first half display, obviously dropped off a little bit in the second, but for as bad as Norwich were, Rotherham were good. It's kind of an equal equation there, I think. But I think what will frustrate David Wagner is that it was basics. It was basics that they were struggling to do. The touch was off, the pass was off. They didn't have the same fluency. They weren't moving in the same way, and I think, look, 3 away games in a week can have that kind of impact, and sometimes, as I said, teams just lose games and they perform badly, and what will be interesting now is to see whether what Rotherham did today is a template that other teams will take and deploy, and Norwich will struggle to contend with, in which case then obviously it becomes a bit more of a concern and it becomes a bit more of a theme, or whether this doesn't have to be anything more sinister and it's just a bad day, which is also possible. So it's about kind of weighing that up and seeing where the land lies after the break. But I think perspective is needed as well, because it's still 10 points from 5 games. It's an excellent return for Norwich City, really, considering the talk heading into the start of the campaign and the mood around the place and the feeling to be averaging at this stage 2 points per game, very small sample size. With the performances that they've put in, I think there's a lot of encouragement to take there. And I think it's important that one result doesn't define a mood heading into a 2-week break, because it's been such a good start from Norwich City. And there's no reason, as I've said, to really fear that it's going to go south and polar the other way. I just think there was stuff that Norwich didn't do today that they needed to do. And I've kind of said that in terms of the way that they didn't stretch the game. And there's stuff Rotherham did do that other opponents haven't done, in terms of stick a high block on them and try and get them to play through it. And when a team goes and suffocates you like that, you really need something in behind. And that's where they probably lacked Josh Sargent's presence. particularly first half. I thought Adam Eder struggled, but he came into the game a little bit, and he wasn't the only one that struggled. There were 5 or 6 others who I thought had a poor game, and actually Norwich City's uplift in the second half was largely because, as I said, they dropped Sarah deeper. It created a bit more space in central areas. Adam Eder was a lot more influential in that second half, and then he got subbed, and I do think there was some and the subs are the subs. I felt the quantity and timings of some of them weren't necessarily the best from David Wagner today, and I'm sure he will reflect on that as well. But equally, he's kind of been limited. He had 2 goalkeepers on the bench, a lot of defenders on the bench, a lot of young players on the bench. The squad has been kind of stretched to its limits, and after the international break, it will look significantly healthier. There will be 5 or 6 players returning. But Josh Sargent, David Wagner has confirmed he'll be missing now until January. He's going to have surgery on his ankle on Monday. Huge blow. He's been so influential to what Norwich have done. It's been a system that's so geared to his qualities, and he's grown as well. I think we've seen that over the last few weeks, really grown in stature, and he's kind of looked, it's that old expression, isn't it? He's looked a foot taller, or a few inches taller, and not foot taller, that'd be quite drastic, but he's looked taller and played with a lot more influence and aura about him. And he's worked and waited so hard for that opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see what Hwang offers Norwich City and the type of striker that he is. And I think we're all waiting with anticipation to see what that looks like. He is joining up with South Korea. They play 2 games in the UK over the international break. They are playing Wales in Cardiff, and then they're playing Saudi Arabia at St James's Park. So maybe an opportunity there for some Norwich City fans to get a little glimpse of what he is all about. So yeah, that's a frustrating way for Norwich to head into the international break. It's not the way they would have wanted to. It doesn't burst the bubble, but I think it does provide a little bit of a reality check for the Championship. As I say, Rotherham caught Norwich City on the chin early, and they never really recovered from it. But as poor as they were, they weren't too far away from getting a result. A bit more quality in that final third, a cross that had a bit more quality about it. And Norwich arguably might have left here with a point, but you have to say on the balance of play and the way that it went, that would have been extremely harsh on Rotherham, I think, and the way that they performed. They thoroughly deserved to win here today. David Wagner accepted that. Angus Gunn accepted that when we spoke to him after the game as well. So when you weigh it up like that, football sometimes is a just game. It can be a just game, and this has been a just result for Norwich City. They deserved to get beat, and they did. Transfer deadline day come and gone. As we alluded to, Andrew Mohamed gone. He was actually due to be here today, due to be on the bench. Norwich received a very late offer, and he has gone for something that could become a £20 million deal, which is a remarkable piece of business from a Norwich City perspective. They obviously replaced him with Danny Bart, late stage from Sunderland on free transfer, who was here today, who's in the director's box. He's ready to go after the international break, as is Yujo Hwang, who joined from Nottingham Forest on loan for the rest of the season. Really intrigued by him. I must confess I was up relatively late last night / this morning, so I haven't been able to look into him too much, but I'm looking forward to doing that in the next few days and weeks and whatnot. So yeah, as I said, Norwich City and David Wagner will be bolstered by the options that are coming back off the international break. So I don't think there's too much cause for concern at this stage. I'm intrigued to see now whether opponents take what Rotherham have done, lift that and try and use it against Norwich City, and whether that's kind of used to stifle, because if Norwich City were a secret in and their new way of playing was a secret in the opening 5 games, certainly not a secret anymore. And they are going to have to keep answering questions that teams put in front of them. And it's going to be intriguing to see if they have the quality to do that over the long term. Pinken.com, the place to go. Paddy's working up David Wagner's analysis of this result. They'll have plenty more reaction as well. I'm going home to Norfolk to sleep. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your international break, and we will see you, of course, at Carrow Road for that game against Stoke. Really interesting games after the break. Really looking forward to it. Time for some rest. Thanks for watching.